Are we on?
Hi, I'm C.C. Péan, and this is Reclaiming Your Health.
Hey everyone, welcome to Reclaiming Your Health. Of course, I am C.C. Péan. I'm so excited to be here this evening with you all. I've got this incredible recipe that I want to share with you, something that I created. And as you all know, I am the kind of person that likes to think of creative ways of fixing plant-based dishes that do not rely on a whole bunch of processed foods or preservative packed foods or salt laden foods. I believe strongly that everything that we need to nourish and fortify and strengthen our bodies, the Master Creator gave it to us, and it's on the earth. It's from the earth. They're fruits and vegetables and legumes and things like that. So this evening, in keeping with my passion, which is foods from the African diaspora. If you're new to this show, know that I am somebody who's very passionate about Africa and the cultures that came from it. And I feel very strongly that traditional foods have everything we need to heal our bodies from within. So whenever I cook, I try to prepare something that is from the African diaspora and its culture. So tonight, I am going to be fixing Callaloo and Ackee Croquettes. Now, here's the thing. We're not actually using Callaloo because it's difficult to find it frozen. If anybody's here in the Tampa area and you can tell me where to find it, please let me know, but it has to be frozen. And these croquettes are not going to be deep fried. We are going to do these in the oven, but they're going to come out just as delicious. The other incredible ingredient in this dish are ackee. And of course, this is Jamaica's national dish, ackee and saltfish. This is one of the main ingredients. This is a very, very interesting vegetable or fruit. It has seeds, so it's a fruit. And the origins of ackee are actually in West Africa. I spent the summer in West Africa a couple years ago, and it's interesting, ackee is everywhere in Ghana. People kind of eat it, but not by any means how they eat it in Jamaica and elsewhere. And, you know, this is pretty pricey. I've heard this called Jamaican gold. This can was about $9. I've seen it as much as $15. In Accra, you can get it for you can get fresh ackee for like $1.50. It's amazing. So one of the ingredients is ackee. The other ingredient is going to be cut leaf spinach. So we don't have the callaloo, so we're going to use cut leaf spinach. And if you're someone who ever cooks with callaloo, you will know that spinach is always something they suggest as a substitute. Of course, it tastes different, but that's what we're going to be using this evening. The other thing that we're going to be using are sun-dried tomatoes. And the reason I'm using sun-dried tomatoes, it has this depth and richness to it. In the traditional dish of ackee and saltfish, you get that kind of umami that really it's like this really satiating, like salty deliciousness that comes from the saltfish. And this is going to mimic that flavor. And the thing that's so wonderful about this dish, anybody who follows me also knows that I love to taste everything in a bite. So I'm always looking for a way to create a dish where every single component, I'm going to get a full mouthful of it. I'm obsessed with it. And I'm obsessed with building layers of flavor. And I do that. I build layers of flavor because I want to avoid using a lot of salt or using salt at all. So what's interesting about this dish is that the sun-dried tomatoes that we're using, they come packed in oil. but I drain off the oil. So they're tender and they already have a saltiness to them and an oiliness to them. And the ackee also comes in a brine. So it also has some saltiness to it. So in terms of adding salt, it's going to be very little salt that we're going to add to it, but it's going to be incredibly delicious. Two things that are also going to go with this dish are a tomato jam that I made and a zippy garlic sauce. You will see those at the end. We're not going to make those this evening, but they're going to be served with it. And we'll talk a little bit more about recipes at the end of this episode. So what is so incredible about this dish is that it is one of the easiest things to make. If you are a beginning cook, you've got it. You need a food processor, or you're going to have to be really, really good with cutting up things. I would say a food processor. Why do I say a food processor? Because again, I like to taste everything in a bite. And so what we're going to do is we're going to break down these ingredients in our food processor. So what we're using is a bag of frozen spinach, frozen chopped or cut spinach. You're going to need to thaw this out. This is a key part of the ingredient. You got to do this right. You want to thaw out your spinach, and I'll show you how I did it. I thaw it out, and we can do the overhead shot in a colander. And what I do is I will squeeze. I don't know if you can see. I think you can see that. I squeeze out any excess liquid because we want this as dry as possible. Anybody who's ever made cauliflower bread has done this kind of thing, because with cauliflower bread, you have to microwave or steam the cauliflower and then wring out all the liquid. So we don't have to go as far as we would with cauliflower bread, but we need to make sure that we get out a good amount of this liquid. So that's the first thing that you're going to do. I would not suggest that you microwave the spinach. Honestly, what I would do is if I plan on cooking it, I would take the bag out and place it in my sink, or I would take it out and pull it in the colander over another bowl so that it does this on its own, and then you can get in there at the end and take some more out. Okay, so you can see we've got a good amount of liquid here. So we're going to get rid of that. And I'm just going to drop this spinach in a bowl. And it doesn't look like there's much spinach here, but you will be surprised. We're going to have quite a few croquettes made from this. Okay, so what we're going to do now, we are going to get to our food processor. Okay, you can see that in the shot. And we're going to do this. So I've got one stalk of scallion. You're going to see I'm just going to cut it up. I've obviously washed this already. I'm going to drop that in my food processor. Whoops. One of those got away. I'm going to take probably like just under a half of an onion. And this is a sweet onion. I prefer sweet onions. I'm just gonna, I don't have to do too much to this because it's going in the food processor. I'm gonna drop that in there as well. I've got 2 cloves of garlic. I'm going to use my handy little garlic crusher. Okay, that's going to go in here. I had a few mushrooms. Just going to drop those in. You don't have to put them in, but it's all going to be broken down, and it adds a nice little added little texture to it. And then I'm going to put in my sun-dried tomatoes. Now these tomatoes, I'm going to chop them up a little more because you don't want big chunks. But because they've already been sitting in that oil, it's going to break down pretty easy. I always suggest getting the ones in oil. When you get the ones that are just kind of like vacuum packed, they're a little tough, and I don't like that. So you see how easily that broke down, and that's now going to go, oops. That's going to go in the food processor as well. These little scraps in there. Oops. All righty. Could you grab that from me, Bex? And the next step is to run the food processor and check it periodically. And scrape down the sides. Continue to scrape down the sides. Sometimes the onions don't want to break down. And as I've said in the past, you know, some people like texture, some don't. So if you're somebody who doesn't like a lot of texture, just keep pulsing this until it gets to a real fine, like mince. I wouldn't suggest a paste, but I would say a real fine mince should work. Okay, so we're going to take a moment here, and to keep this all together, we're going to use flax meal. I like to use flax meal. It serves as my egg, my binder. So right here, I've got about 2 tablespoons of flax meal, and I'm going to add probably like about 1/4 cup of water to this, and it's going to give me the equivalent of 2 eggs. So you can't see this. So here we go. My trusty assistant is going to hand me a spoon. And this is our egg substitute. The great thing about it, flax is so good for you. It's great if you have any kind of inflammation issues, but especially like high blood pressure, diabetes. Flax is really good for you. So we've got this. This is about a good 2, about the equivalent of 2 eggs. Okay, see that? So we're going to put that aside. And now we are going to put together our Callaloo and Ackee croquettes. And if you all have any questions, feel free to ask them. I love questions. I love interactive sessions. So if you can see, we've got the spinach in the bowl, and to that, we are adding that mixture of the sun-dried tomatoes, the garlic, the onions, and the scallions, and a couple of mushrooms we just threw in there for good measure. And so we're going to just make sure that this is well mixed. As you can see, because everything was so well pulsed and broken down, it's very easy to get this all integrated. We've got one big piece of onion. We're going to get rid of that. But if you can see, this is what it looks like so far. Okay. To this, I'm going to add about a teaspoon of coriander, about a teaspoon of cumin. I'm going to continue mixing. One of my favorite ingredients to use is something that's called mushroom salt. So I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of that. I would say I'm going to use about a half of a tablespoon worth of that in there. But remember, we're going to have the saltiness of the ackee. We have the saltiness of the sun-dried tomato as well. So we don't need a lot of salt. All right, the next thing I'm going to add now is this flax egg. And you're going to see how congealed it is. That. So now we're going to mix that through. And you should see how it's, if you can see how it's coated the mixture. So I'm just going to keep on to make sure it's all incorporated. The next thing we're going to use is our ackee. Now, I love ackee, so I'm going to use all of this, but you can use as much as you'd like. It's one of the ways to, if you maybe like the flavor of ackee, but not the texture, this is one of the ways to incorporate it into your dish. I just need to make sure that this is, we've got all of our liquid off of it, all the brine. Now, a lot of times when people use ackee, they want it to be in, they don't want it to break down too much. Well, this dish, it's going to break down because you're manipulating it to make sure that you get some in every bite. So don't worry about that. So I'm going to take, that's probably a good half of the can. And I'm going to continue to mix this in. Now, this may not look good, but I can promise you it's delicious. It's one of my most requested dishes when I do catering. It's one of my most requested appetizers. Okay, so we've got that in there. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to use about a half a cup to 3/4 cup of plain breadcrumbs. See that? Now, if you're somebody who has a gluten issue, you can always use gluten-free breadcrumbs. That's fine. So we're going to use about 3/4 cup. I'm just going to mix that in. We don't want to use too much because you don't want to dry it out. You still want these to be moist when they bake. Just a little more. Yeah, that feels good. All right. That's it. It is well combined. If you take a look at this, it is well combined. So let me just rinse off my hands, and then we're going to get to forming our croquettes. Seems like every time I get on camera with you all, my face starts itching. So in addition to the plain breadcrumbs, what I like to do is I like to use panko crumbs to roll my croquettes in. Because when you see spinach, after it's cooked, it takes on like this really dark kind of unattractive color. And remember, we're cooking not only for taste, but we want it to be pleasing to the eyes as well. So I do that. And our oven has been set at 350. Depending on your oven, these are our panko breadcrumbs we're using now. Depending on your oven, this should take about 20 to 25 minutes. If you want it a little tougher, go 25. If you want it to be a little softer, more moist, I would say 20 minutes. So what we're gonna do, so I put some panko breadcrumbs in the bowl. I have a scoop here. Depending on how big you want it, you can do them bigger. I think that this size is a really good size because you can have them as appetizers. You could have them as, like as an entree. You can have 3 of them on your plate with like pasta or something like that, or some rice. Or some roast breadfruit or something like that. There's a lot of things you could do with this. You can even use them on a hoagie in place of your typical meatballs. So I did a scoop here. I'm gonna put it in my hand. If you get weirded out with this, you can always use gloves. And I'm gonna roll it into the form of the ball. It's just that simple. Then I put it in my panko breadcrumbs. And there you go. That's our first one. So we're gonna keep on rolling. Now, I would think that this will make maybe about 15 of these. You can also shape these like patties if you want to, like a hamburger patty if you want to. There's no best shape, it's whatever you want. However you shape it, I guarantee it, people are gonna be wanting more and more. Any questions? Is anybody there? I'm not seeing any kind of interaction today. Any questions? I posted earlier on Facebook that some information about ackee, and somebody mentioned and said that it can kill you. And that's true. Ackee can be deadly if you eat it when it is unripe. So it has to be ripe. It doesn't necessarily have to be cooked, but it has to be ripe. If it's ripe and it's fresh, it can actually be eaten raw. I've never done it, but I know some that have. Interestingly enough, the same goes for, well, it's not poisonous, but the same goes for plantain in that when it starts to turn yellow, with just a few spots, you can actually eat it like you would eat a banana. My friend Ian told me about that. I didn't know. I always thought that plantain had to be cooked, and it is actually quite delicious raw. Didn't know that. So any questions, assistant?
How did you get into cooking?
How did I get into cooking? Well, I grew up in a home with a mother who was an incredible cook. And whenever I was in trouble, I had to come sit in the kitchen and watch her cook. That was my punishment. And who knew that it would become my vocation? But I lost my job in 2008 when we had the first big recession of my adulthood. And my church, Breath of Life in Inglewood, California, shout out to Breath of Life, I was asked by them to head up the dining ministry. And I said, I've got nothing else to do. Why not? And I realized very quickly that I absolutely loved cooking. I loved the challenge of cooking for a lot of people on a very limited budget and making people happy. I love the fact that I cooked food that made people feel good. It was good for them and it was delicious. And so that's how I got into it. Okay. Can you use fresh spinach? This spinach that I'm using is blanched spinach. I don't think so. I think it's best to use frozen spinach. You can try it and let me know, but I wouldn't suggest it. Well, first of all, because spinach, it shrinks so much. I can't even imagine how much you would have to use to get this amount of spinach. So the bag of spinach I use, I got it from Sprouts. It was probably like around $2.50, and it probably adds the equivalent of what would probably cost you $10, $12 in fresh spinach. So I would say just go ahead and get the frozen spinach. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we've got 10 so far. 25 minutes. We've got 10 so far. Maybe not. Any other questions? Are my regulars on tonight? Have you all abandoned me? I know this isn't deep fried chicken or deep fried mushrooms, but it's still good eating. We'll get back to that comfort vegan in a couple of weeks, but we definitely want the lion's share of our cooking to be food that is really good for you. So that's what this one is. Any other questions? Are you all seeing how easy this is to do? You know, I have said this, and it is so true, that when you become a vegan or when you're transitioning into a vegan lifestyle, the temptation is to do what's easy. And a lot of times that is processed and prepared, preservative, packed food. And it really is not best for us. And I think that those of us who belong to a particular denomination in particular have fallen into that. So part of what I wanted to do with this is to show you that you don't have to do that and to really rethink what a meal is and what constitutes or what can take the place of meat in your diet. I believe that the closer we eat things to its natural state, the better it is for you. I'm sure I sound like a broken record, but I say that your body takes what it needs from it and it gets rid of the rest. And that is what our goal is. All right, so we've got 15, 16, and I think this is going to be 17. Okay. So let me just rinse my hands, and then we're going to put this in the oven. Just clean up a little bit. Okay, so we can switch over. Switch over to the oven. And we're going to put this on for, I'll just go right in the middle, 22 minutes. Okay, so let's go back over here. And with the magic of television, because I knew that we were going to be short on time, you will see that the end product, this is our end product. Can you see that? These are our Callaloo and Ackee Croquettes, oven baked. And I made this wonderful tomato jam. And the tomato jam I made has so many delicious things in it. It has golden raisins. I use golden raisins in my tomato jam or my tomato chutney in place of sugar. It's got all that sweetness. So we've got fresh ginger, we've got garlic, we've got cumin, we've got coriander, we've got a little bit of cinnamon in there, a little bit of cane vinegar. And so we are now going to plate because, again, we want it to not only taste good, but to look good as well. So something else I did is I have this delicious, yummy garlic sauce that I use. So we're just gonna do this on the perimeter of the bowl. We're gonna put some of this delicious chutney right in the middle. And those who are asking, all of this information will be available. We're gonna let you know about that shortly. And my favorite herb in life, use some more of that here. And so if you are curious about these recipes, for the past several weeks, we have shared recipes to you. If you go to either my Facebook page or to the Reclamation page, project page, the recipes are there. But moving forward, you're going to be getting my recipes off of ccpean.com. I want to be able to engage with you all more. I want to be able to give you much more information, nutritional information about me. So please visit ccpean.com. But I will continue to be here week after week sharing these incredible recipes with you. But I want you to get an overhead shot. Oh, my favorite herb. My favorite herb probably is thyme. I love fresh thyme. I love it, love it, love it. Can we get an overhead shot of this dish? Is that lovely? And it's so yummy. I will let you know that I prepared some of this earlier and my niece ate 3 of them. So it's super yummy. It looks delicious. It is delicious. This tomato jam or tomato chutney that's in here, I don't know if you can see that. It's really super simple to make. Of course, I'll be sharing the recipe with you. The garlic sauce that goes on it is super simple to make. I will be sharing that with you. Thank you for tuning in. Please visit ccpean.com. My gentleman is working on getting that up and running. If it's not there, if you go there right now and it's not up and running, let me know. Come to my page and let me know, or go to the Reclamation Project and let me know. But we're working furiously to get it ready for you so we can give you all some incredible content and great recipes to cook. It has been my honor cooking for you tonight, and I will see you next week, Tuesday. Bye-bye.